Hey guys, it's the end of the third 4-hour playthrough of the 13-player EU4 game, and this is what the world looks like at the end of that playthrough. The Commonwealth gobbled up all of this territory. Austria, it's misleading, but Austria actually owns all of this territory. Anything that's not Saxony, the Commonwealth, or Venice is Austria. So anything in here is Austria. Austria is huge, is amazingly huge. So Austria and the Commonwealth are in first and second place as far as army is concerned, but they're both kind of tied with France and Castile for how much money they're making, and actually Sweden. So Sweden, the Commonwealth, Austria, and France and Castile are all tied for income. Now double that place. We're all tied for about 50 income, but double that, 100 income, that's where Great Britain and the Ottomans live. They're each making $100. Great Britain makes up for the fact that they're making all that money by the fact that they don't have a very well-trained military and they don't have a very big military. So their military is about the same size as, let's look over here at the spreadsheet. So England over here, force limits, they have 85 and France has 78. So that's basically the same size military as me. Whereas the Ottomans up here, they have the same 100 income as England has, but they have 111 force limits, which is actually almost tied for first place. So they're first place in both army and income, and that's because, I believe that's because they westernized during the last playthrough. But the Ottomans have been so quiet for the entire game that no one's really too super worried about them, I don't think. I mean, they're right on the border with the Commonwealth, with the Italian peninsula, whom I'm allied with, and with Muscovy. So I'm sure those people keep reminding themselves the Ottomans are out there, but they don't seem to be actually actively fighting anyone or doing anything. They're just like occasionally on voice chat saying, "Whoa, ho, 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 ho," and that's all they do. So then the other major powers, like as me, France, I'm 4th in income and 5th in army, so I'm a major power, but I'm like at the bottom of the list of major powers. So Poland and Austria have huge armies. Ottoman has huge both. England has a huge income and an average army. I have an average army and an average income. And then the next category of people are the Muscovy, Castile, Sweden people, who are kind of world class in one category but not at all in the other. So for example, Muscovy has like a decent army and a decent income, and so they're like okay, but they're more of a middling player than a large player, and a lot of their income and military is tied up in the Golden Horde, which they can't super well control all by themselves. And then Castile, we already said is about as rich as me, but doesn't have nearly the force limits as me, because we're only just now securing the Iberian Peninsula for Castile. For the rest of the game, they just kind of decided to let it be in control of the AI, which I thought was ridiculous. So I was like, we should not do that. Anyway, and then up here in Sweden, Sweden is as rich as me. They're making $50 a month, but they have no army at all. They have like 30 army compared to the Ottomans 100, and France and England's like 80, and Austria's 110, Commonwealth's 100 or whatever. So very small, like a third the size of everyone else's army. So Sweden can't really throw a lot of muscle around, but they can throw a lot of money around. And I don't know that that's super useful, but they can do it. And they have boats. Then we got the miners. Okay, the miners are Milan and Venice right here, and Saxony up here. Now Saxony is by far the miner who has acquired the most threatening looking territory, the most like sheer quantity of territory, and who has expanded the quickest. And because of that, Sweden took some territory from them. They liberated Denmark from Saxony, and in order to do that, they formed a coalition of the Commonwealth, Muscovy, Sweden, Britain, and France, all against this little Saxony. That like the army size of Saxony. It's embarrassing that you would need such a coalition, right? The army size of Saxony is 51, and that's basically the same size as any one of the allies that Sweden brought in against them. But Sweden needs to bring a lot of allies because they don't have any troops of their own. So they need to get a big alliance, because they can't bring one ally, because what if the person they attack brings one ally? And now those two allies are each of equal size, but Sweden is way smaller than Saxony, right? It's funny that Sweden is way smaller than Saxony. Saxony has 54 force limits between themselves and their AI, and Sweden only has 32. So in the beginning of the game, Sweden is clearly much bigger than Saxony. Everyone thought Saxony was going to have a horrible time of this playthrough because they're right next to Sweden and they're in the Empire. So any attempt they make to expand south should be immediately counteracted by Austria. And Austria has repeatedly said, I'm going to stop anyone from expanding into the Empire. Even the other people within the Empire can't expand into the Empire. But then Austria's rules are cool. I like them. He's trying to be like RP, like roleplay. Like he's trying to say, basically, if you inherit territory, it's yours. If you diplomatically, I don't know what's going on, but basically he said Saxony inherited a bunch of thrones, and they took a bunch of new lands for the Empire, the Denmark lands. So all of that was totally fine with him. But then they seem to have attacked all of these nations in here and vassalized or crushed them, and they seem to have attacked Bavaria and crushed them, and I don't know what's going on. But anyway, Saxony's doing great. Venice is protected by me and Castile. We just kind of on a whim decided to protect Venice. As you can see, they've secured most of the Iberian Peninsula. They almost got Sicily, but Milan is being a thorn in Venice's side. So two of the miners are neighbors, and both of them are neighbors to Austria and France, like real heavy hitters. France looks really scary on a map, but as far as sheer army size and income goes, Austria actually has more than me. So Austria sided with Milan, France sided with Venice, and me and Austria and I haven't actually fought except for that one time over the Venice versus Milan conquest, and that sort of gave everyone cold feet about the whole let's have giant global wars where we fight each other and then get sniped by everyone who didn't participate in the war. So that didn't happen again this playthrough, but we did fight a war against Milan in which the moment... Okay, so what happened is I attacked Savoy, and I wanted this territory, Savoy and Nice, and I was going to give Nice to Venice. And Milan saw that we were fighting Savoy, so they declared war on Savoy before we were done and sieged up half of Savoy's territory. So it was impossible for us to get a peace for more than just one territory. I had to declare peace with Savoy for just that one territory instead of getting two or more. And that's because you only get war score for the territories you siege. So if someone else sieges a couple of territories and just refuses to end their war, then you could just never end your war the way you want to. And so that kind of bugged me, so I attacked Milan, basically saying, look, you know, that's a dick move, and I'm going to call you on it because my army is 200 times bigger than yours, and I have triple your income, and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't want to crush Milan. I kind of like the idea of having this huge game with all these players, and I know that if I just start going around killing players, that other players are going to fight me for it, and I'm not worried that I wouldn't be able to win such a fight, and I think such a fight might be kind of fun, but I do think it'd be the end of maybe the entire game, because if there was, like, for example, a knuckle boxing fight between England, Spain, France, and Venice, maybe allied with Sweden and Muscovy and Poland, or maybe not. Those are all kind of wild cards. Those three could ally either with Austria or with us. And basically the winner of that war would be decided by who Poland and Muscovy and Sweden decided to side with. And that's really scary for both me and Austria, right? Because no matter who they side with, they get to kill the other guy. And my guess is that they would be much happier killing Austria than they would be killing me, right? Because these three nations over here in the north and in the east, if they decided to side with Austria against me, they get no territory from it. They can't come over here and beat me up. The only thing they get from it is, like, if I was a world power trying to gobble up everything and they were worried that I was doing too well, they could gang up and stop me, right? But I'm not doing that. Anyway. So after we punished Milan, I demanded Provence from them because if you look on the culture map, Provence is actually part of France, and I just wanted it to be part of France. And then we also demanded Nice from them as punishment for basically them annexing Nice when we declared war on them, right? So they sieged up these three provinces and then refused to end the war because they didn't want us to end our war, right? It's like whoever blinks first gets a better peace deal. So I was like, well, fine, and I attacked them and started breaking their sieges on Savoyan territory. So they declared peace with Savoy and took Cuneo and Nice and Liguria and Corsica from Savoy and Genoa. And then I was like, well, give Neet back and you can keep those other 3. And I also made an agreement with them, which they immediately went back on after we declared peace in game. I said, I'll let you take anything to the north, and I won't stop you, and I won't try to take it before you get it. And you let us go south, so that we can actually get this Italian peninsula that we've been trying for this game. Like, this is what we want, and you can have this stuff over here. And that wasn't a very good deal for them, but it's a better deal than us killing them, right? So I'm not trying to portray myself as being the all, like, generous dude. If they conquer and vassalize Switzerland and then conquer and vassalize Savoy, then what, right? There's nowhere for them to go. So I just wanted to give them enough leverage to be able to, like, maybe become part of one of these giant coalitions, or work with Austria to kill me, or work with me to kill Austria or something. Give them enough skin in the game, enough strength, so that they can be part of what happens. I don't want them to win. I don't want them to kill me, but I don't want them to be out right now either. I want them to come back next week, so that's why I gave them a bit more territory. So this is the major point of contention on while I'm playing anyway, is that we're always worried that Milan is trying to bring other people in against us, and especially when the Commonwealth, the most powerful army in the game, right, allied with the Ottomans, the most powerful army in the game and the biggest income in the game, that was really scary, because now whoever those two go with wins in any fight anywhere in the world. So that's kind of crazy. Anyway, I had fun making these cute little graphs, but what really becomes interesting is just these 3 columns right here, like how is everyone actually doing. And you can tell color-coded wise the Ottomans are the only one in the top current, like, military, like this means how exhausted are you by war, right? So if you have 113 force limits like Austria, but you just got through fighting a majillion rebels like Austria, you might only have 100 total military, and that might mean 50,000 troops with 50,000 manpower, all divided between you and your AI allies, right? So current army size wise, the Ottomans could probably crush any 3 other nations at once right now. And then the income is just obviously income, and there are only so many players that are even in the top bracket. The Muscovy is surprisingly really far out of it. Venice, surprisingly very far out of the income competition, and Saxony and Milan. It's not surprising so much that Venice, Saxony, and Milan are out, because they are the minors, but I was thinking with enough backing from me that Venice would get into it by the end of this playthrough. And they did get a lot of new territory, and a lot of it is coastal territory, but until they start unlocking land in this trade route and protecting ships over in these trade depots and redirecting trade properly, they're not going to have a huge trade income, right? So the trade map mode, this is Venice. They should have like 90% control here, and they don't. So that kind of bugs me. Like, Naples is their vassal, so they should get all of the trade power from Naples. Milan has only 16% in the node, so if they dedicated enough light ships to this node, they're only dedicating 18 light ships. If they dedicated enough light ships to this node, they should easily get like 80% trade power in this node. And then they're supposed to go upstream and redirect from this node into their primary node. And with 80% trade power in this node, that would take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That would take $9 that are currently going elsewhere and redirect them into Venice, and then they'd have a 16 trade per turn income instead of the 8.3 trade per turn income that they currently have. So I don't know why Venice is not doing that right now, but their income is very teeny tiny. And then the next thing that they would want to do is redirect trade from Constantinople into this node using light ships, or redirect trade from the Mamluks into this node using some light ships and maybe some territory over here. And they're not doing that, so that's why they're not a world power economically. I expected them to be by now. Maybe I need to have a talk with them about how trade nodes work and stuff, but they've given me the impression through all of our conversations that they know and that they're working towards that. I guess maybe they lost all of their light ships or something? I don't know. Whatever happened, Venice is very disappointing with their income at this point. They're even with all the other miners, and that's not where I wanted them to be. Yeah, and then I think there's like some bar graphs that might be useful or something, but since they're not loading, I guess that's the end of this summary. So I took the first person view of like France's screen of the first 4 hours, and I compressed it down into about 45 minutes and talked over it and uploaded it to YouTube. And let me know whether or not that's worth doing, because I was surprised to load a 4 hour, like 8 bajillion gig video into like Windows Movie Maker or anything like that takes forever. And then each time you render it, it takes forever, and the whole thing just takes forever. And it's fun to do, and it's worth doing, but it means that I'm not doing other videos during like a 16-hour chunk of time, and that's a big deal, because I think a lot fewer people like EU4 videos than like Banished videos or StarCraft videos or other things like that. So I don't know if I'm going to get to the second playthrough soon, but I will hopefully eventually get to it and then get to this playthrough, and you'll have some first-person stuff to look at from these playthroughs. So there you go, man. There you go. I do still find it apt or fitting or whatever you want to say that the most powerful nations, most powerful armies in the world belong to the two most precarious nations, Austria and the Commonwealth. They have all this territory that would be so easy to take from them because they're surrounded by so many players, and so they have the biggest armies in the world. I also should say I really like the new colonization, the way colonization works. Colonies are like vassals now that redirect all their trade power to you, but no money and no troops. And I think that's much cooler. It's much more realistic, and it's much better. It leads to a European game that's actually about Europe instead of just about who can get the most colonies. But colonies are still important because, as you can see, like Great Britain is getting maybe $30 a turn from trade, which is ridiculous because I'm making a total of $50 a turn, like at all. So the trade is important, but it's only the trade that's important. And if you blockade all their ports, they get 0 from trade. So it was, it's very fragile, and it's cool the way that works.